Hey, hi all. Welcome to BRR Knowledge Center. And in today's session, we are going to talk about data types in C Sharp. So, as I mentioned, C Sharp is an industry language which is being used for all applications in Microsoft. And even if you see any language outside of Microsoft, all the languages, following same standards what C Sharp is having it. And C Sharp is a family coming from C++, wherein it carried out the syntaxes of C++ and C and Java programming languages. So when you talk about C Sharp data types, so C Sharp is a strongly typed language, first thing is, and it means we must declare type of variable that indicates the kind of value it is going to store. Okay, so what is data type basically? Data type is nothing but what kind of data you are going to store in a variable, and that variable again going to store in memory, right? So before you assign a value to a variable, you must define variable type. That's why C Sharp is a strongly typed language. So if you are storing some value, you must make sure that that variable should be defined. Okay. Suppose if I want to store some value like name, right? str name. This is what my variable name. I basically wanted to, uh, you know, uh, save into a memory so that later on I wanted to retrieve from memory, right? Suppose equal to some BRR. This is what the variable I wanted to make sure that this variable is going to store a BRR value. Okay. So if you want to keep this value into a str name variable. Let's take an example. Just that's it. We'll discuss what is this again. String type, data type, integer, and decimal float. So all data types we can discuss. What I'm trying to say is, if you want to define or store any value into a memory or variable, you make sure that the variable must be defined. That's why C sharp is right strongly typed. C sharp is strongly typed language. Okay, so it means we must declare the type of variable that indicates the kind of values it is going to store, such as string, integer, decimal, etc. Okay, let me format this. Right. So, for example, I want to store a BRR a string into str name. I must make sure that this has to be defined with string data type. Okay. Similarly, right, I'm going to define another variables, right? Meanwhile, this is carry string, a string value I'm storing here. Hello world. And similarly, int value equal to 3387. And similarly, float value, because as I mentioned in the earlier sessions, I'm just following the standard of variable declaration. So if I'm saying some prefix as some type of value I'm going to store is nothing but Hungarian notation, because val, this is a kind of the variable of string type. Here val of the value is int. Here val of type is float. Okay. So equal to some 10.2 f. These are some examples. We basically store, right, with different data types, right? The variables of different data types are going to be declared using the relevant types. So C sharp mainly categorized into C sharp mainly categorized into, right? Categorized data types into three types. They are, one is value data types, second is reference data types, third is pointer data type. So these are the different data types the C sharp is divided, right? Value data types, reference data types, and pointer data type, because it is only having one data type. So if you want to me showcase the diagram, right? I'm going to paste it here. This is what the diagram. So if you look at this diagram, C sharp data types are categorized as value type, reference type, pointer type. When it comes to value type, again, it has simple types, enumeration types, struct types, nullable types. Okay. So simple types means integral, right? Floating point, character, boolean. These are intrinsic or simple data types. When it comes to enumeration, you need to use enum keyword so that it is going to indicate some value or code to that particular word, and based on that enumeration, we are going to do some actions, like let us say like some CRUD operations. Create, I'm just assigning as 0, and read, I'm going to assign as 1, right? So let me tell you, um, suppose for the CRUD operations, C I'm assigning 0, or I'm assigning as 1. This is my enumeration value I'm assigning it. Update I'm assigning as 2, right? Delete I'm assigning 3, right? These are my enumerations. So in the code, I'm just referring, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So these are something enumeration I'm talking about. And struct keyword, basically using it for creating structures. Okay. And nullable types, basically we use it for defining a variable of nullable, right? So when it comes to reference types, again having classes, interfaces, arrays, and delegates. These are reference types. Okay. And even string also comes as part of this reference type. We'll talk about all this stuff in below here. So when coming to here, value types, value data type, okay, the value types, let me format, uh, the value data types, okay, are integer based and floating based, correct? C sharp language supports both signed and unsigned data types here. So value types means integer and floating points. If you want to store any value, I mean integer value, you make sure that you have to define value data type like integer, float, decimal, etc. Okay. So C sharp supports both signed and unsigned, right? Data types. Because if you want to store some positive value, straight away you can store. If you want to store some negative value like -10 or -20, that also you can store into variables by just defining signed data types. Okay. Example, short, int, char, and float, double, enum, and struct types are value types. These are all value data types. So value types again divided into value data types, again divided into two types. One is, right, predefined data type. Second one is user defined data types. Okay, what is predefined data type? If you look at the data types we have mentioned here, all these are predefined data types till here, correct? And enumeration structures are user defined because I'm going to define to store some value to the operation here. This I'm going to create, user is going to create, coder, developer is going to create. Hence, these are difference, I mean, user defined. So when it comes to value, predefined type, integer, float, decimal, boolean. When it comes to here, user defined or enum, struct, etc. Okay. So value data types are used for storing integer and floating point values. And again, value types are divided into two types, predefined and user defined. Predefined or something like integer, float, decimal, boolean. And user defined basically does not have any definition with enum and structure until user is going to define your program. Hence, these are categorized as user defined data types. So there are some data types and sizes, ranges of value types. So let me tell you, like, data type, memory size, range. So when you talk about char, this is the data type I'm going to talk about here. This data type basically having memory size is 1 byte. This is having 1 byte. And the range is minus 128 to 127. That means you can store a value 1 to 127 or 1 to minus 128 values. Okay. Similarly, signed char. As I mentioned, it supports signed and unsigned. This is also 1 byte. Okay. And the range of this particular thing also same as unsigned char. If you're not defining anything means this is unsigned. If you're defining means signed char means it will be signed char, right? So this is something char initially it stores here. Sorry, unsigned, I think we can separately define it. This is again 1 byte and the size is 0 to 127. That means it doesn't allow any negative values, unsigned char. Okay. Char defines, okay, two types here, signed, unsigned. Similarly, short, this is again having signed short, unsigned short. Okay. Similarly, int, sign, int, unsigned int. Okay. So I think these values somehow having bigger values. I think I'll just copy and paste the table here for your reference. Let me get the table because it is something looks like bigger ranges here. I'm not going to uh, keep in mind because these are something like that. So character 1 byte, signed character 1 byte, unsigned 1 byte, short, signed int, signed short, integer, signed int, unsigned int, long. Again, it is having signed long, unsigned. Float doesn't have any signed or unsigned. Float and double and decimal. Okay. So these are different value data types. Okay. Make sure these are case sensitive. Okay. So, and these are having memory sizes 1 byte and short again 2 bytes, integer 4 bytes, and long is 8 bytes. Suppose if your value is more than this range, you're going to define your variable as long so that it will store the value range is this way. And if it is more than 8 bytes, right, you go for decimal. It allows more range limit wherein you store values in decimal. Okay. So generally floating and decimal points or double points we use for precisions, like when you have a pointer values, right? Floating literals like 10.5 or 20.5, something like that. When you have a decimal, then we go for this floating section. When you don't have any floating numbers, then you go for this particular values. Okay. Again, char you can define for 1 byte size. So like what is 1 byte? It is 8-bit size. 1 byte means 8 bits. 1 byte means 8 bits. That means 8 characters of size it is going to allocate in the memory. Okay. And coming to the next one is reference data types. Reference data types. So what is reference data types? The reference data types do not contain the actual data storing in the variable, but they contain a reference of variable. Okay. Reference is nothing but address. Reference is nothing but address of a variable. Suppose I've been declared a variable called int, right? Some int value. Int value equal to 10. So if you look at here, this is the variable I've been defined, right? Which is having 10 value stored into int val variable. This variable basically stores in the memory. That's what we are talking about here. Okay. So let me draw this. When I say this is my memory, right? Instead of this, I'm going to store int val. Okay. This is my memory. Got it? And again, of course, memory is going to be divided into two types. We'll talk about that. Stack memory, right? And heap memory. Stack and heap. Stack memory stores value data types. Heap memory stores, right, reference type values. Okay. So when you talk about reference data type, right, as I said, these are going to be, right, store the reference of variable. Okay. It does not contain the value. So in this case, this is the value data type. It will store value of int value. When you define something like string class arrays and objects, something like that, those are actually stored value and value in stack and reference in heap memory. Okay, let's get define the definition. So the reference data types, the reference data types do not store or do not contain the actual data stored in a variable, but they contain a reference, that means address to the variable. Address is nothing but where the variable is located in the memory. Okay. If the data is changed, right? If the data is changed by one of the, right? Change to the one of the variable, change by R to the, right? Variables, the other variable automatically reflects because these are value types. Got it? For example, the examples of these data types are, as I mentioned, string, class, and arrays, objects, interfaces. These are the examples for reference data type. So as we discussed, value type is divided into two types. These references or reference data types also divided into two types. Reference data types also divided into two types. They are predefined and user defined. Okay, predefined and user defined. What are all predefined means similar to predefined data types of value data types. Like, these are the predefined, right? And here in this reference type, predefined means object string. These are predefined data types. Coming to here, classes, interfaces. So these are going to be created by developer. Hence, these are user-defined types. Okay. So even in reference data types, right? So we have like two types again: predefined, user-defined. Predefined basically object and string. Reference types, right? And user-defined reference types are classes and interfaces. Okay. So I hope you understood, right? What is a value data type? What is reference data type? So when you define a value, suppose if you want to store a value or if you want to use a value across different program procedures inside of program, then you make sure that that values should be stored in a variable. Okay. So if you want to store a value, right, you must define the variable type also, what kind of value you are going to store. Because C# language is a type safety or strongly typed language, and that means we must define the variable type before you assign value to a variable. So in C# we have two types, three type of data types: value types, reference types, and pointer type. When it comes to value type, these are something like integer and floating number related data types. Whenever you want to store integer values, you go for value types. And the value types are defined again two categories: predefined and user defined. So this integer, float, decimal are predefined, right? And this enum and struct are user defined. So these are the ranges of these particular data types, because these many data types we have in value data types. It based on a value as storing. Suppose if I want to store student number, right, it is always unsigned, right? And then if you want to store something, a value which is basically having only negative, then go for sign. So like that, you choose whatever data type you want based on the requirement. And coming to reference data type, these reference data types do not contain the actual value as like value data type, but it store value, right? And in keep that value in stack memory, and it holds reference of variable in reference data type store. So as I mentioned, it has two type of memories: stack memory, heap memory. Stack memory means value data type storing. Heap memory means reference data type is going to store. Reference types always having reference of variable, but the actual value will get stored in the stack memory itself. These reference data types are two types: predefined and user defined. So object string are predefined, classes and interface are user defined. Okay. So we'll see the pointer data type in next session with fresh look and feel, because it is something we talk about, the kind of pointer which is coming up with different symbols like ampersand and asterisk. So we'll discuss this pointer data type in coming session. So far, you just understand and try to, get the points of value types and reference types here. These value types are storing in stack. These reference types are storing in heap memory. Heap memory have some relation to value type because reference types directly do not contain value. It only contains the reference. A value again stored into value data types memory called stack. Okay. Thanks for listening to this video, and please subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.